So in the meantime, the media suspends critical thinking skills altogether. So get this, podcast listeners, the media in 2020 has completely and utterly suspended their critical thinking skills. I think you already know that. But we have proof of that. And we have proof of how inappropriate they are in coverage of this election. And it's one more reason why 70 million Americans are saying, you know what? I'm not really sure about this election, because even the media seems like they're not being fair. What a surprise. So first up, CNN's Anderson Cooper compares Trump to a turtle. This is when Anderson Cooper had decided in his own mind that Trump was going to lose the election, election day. And I'm sorry, can you imagine being an anchor and saying such a thing? Can you imagine being even serious and saying, we have that clip and here it is.
That is the president of the United States. That is the most powerful person in the world. And we see him like an obese turtle on his back, flailing in the hot sun, realizing his time is over.
So, I'm laughing because Anderson Cooper is acting so serious. Like, you know, I'm a really intelligent anchor and I just know that people are following me on this, and I've got some breaking news. The president is like a turtle flailing on his back. I mean, really? This is news? This is news? It's like Saturday Night Live. It's like a parody. I mean, it's hard to believe. So we also have CNN's Jake Tapper, who spoke after the Donald Trump press conference, and I want you to know this. CBS, ABC, and MSNBC all broke out of the Trump press conference election night. And so you probably didn't hear this because I'm sure most podcast listeners don't watch those phony shows, namely CBS, ABC, MSNBC, if you want to call them. They're really shows, not even newscasts. But every single one of them broke away from the Trump press conference the night of the election, and they did so before it was finished. Would that be normal? If you have so many people engaged in this election, why would you break away from the press conference? Wouldn't you want to hear everything that Donald Trump said, even if you get triggered when he talks? You still, it's what a free society does. You don't censor the sitting president of the United States, even if you don't like what he says, but they can't even handle it because their viewers can't handle it. So here's CNN's Jake Tapper after Donald Trump spoke at his press conference, and he breaks away from the press conference right after the press conference, to his credit. So I just want to clarify that. CNN, you did have an opportunity to see the whole press conference. Then Jake Tapper decides he's going to break away and say a few things. You have to hear what Jake Tapper decides to say. It's really strange. This is election night, and here it is.
What a sad night for the United States of America to hear their president say that, to falsely accuse people of trying to steal the election, to try to attack democracy that way with this feast of falsehoods. Lie after lie after lie about the election being stolen. No evidence for what he's saying, just smears about the integrity of vote counting in state after state. When he wins a state, it's legitimate. When he loses, it's because the vote is being stolen.
So that, again, that's almost as bad as Anderson Cooper comparing Trump to a turtle. This is Jake Tapper saying it's so sad for a president to do that. So look, if you believe that you were cheated in some sort of business dealing, okay? Let's just say you went to a store and you decided to pay in cash, and the cashier gives you your change and doesn't give you sufficient change, and you know that they've made an error. And you say to the cashier, you've made an error, I gave you a $100 bill, and you didn't give me my change properly. And are you supposed to have, I don't know, Jake Tapper get in the middle of you and go, it's really sad that you're questioning what this person did. You should never question what this person behind the register just did because they are always right. That is not the job of the media. a media is supposed to be a critical thinking organization where it allows the news to get out, such as it is, whether they like it or not, and they report it. But they're not supposed to opine election night as to whether they think there is or isn't election fraud, because one candidate thinks there is, and one candidate has 70 million people behind them who think the same thing. So that is so important. It's so important that we have a country that is confident in the elections. I can't say that enough. And if you're a Democrat and you think that you should suspend your critical thinking skills when your guy wins, or if you're a Republican and you think you should suspend your critical thinking skills when your guy wins, you're both wrong. All right? Our country can't survive unless people agree that we must get to, I don't know, a free and fair media that has critical thinking skills, and at the same time have free and fair elections and not have mass mail-out balloting, which is cheating. I'm sorry. I think it's wrong. I think it's rife for cheating. So here's MSNBC's Brian Williams. Keep in mind, MSNBC was one of the networks that cut away from the president's press conference, the election night, long before he was finished. And they cut away a minute after the president started. And here's what Brian Williams of MSNBC said. Here's that clip.
I've already decisively won many critical states, including massive victories in Florida, Iowa, Indiana, Ohio.
Okay, here we are again in the unusual position of not only interrupting the President of the United States, but correcting the President of the United States.
So here's the media. Here's the media. A hard news anchor, such as he is, Brian Williams, is correcting the President of the United States. He's correcting him. So he's not reporting what the President said, and he's not saying, well, why don't we see some proof of what the President is alleging? He's correcting the President of the United States. Folks, that is not the function of the media. It's also not how our elections work, right? Once again, we have a full month for there to be recounts and for there to be lawsuits and for there to be all kinds of questions and things that you might expose that happened that at least create, and if you don't have them, fine. If they don't exist, then that's great. Report that. But Brian Williams is like, he's not the least bit interested in reporting any kind of possibility. He's just basically saying, oh no, this guy won, and this guy lost, and the guy that lost is just a sore loser. I got to tell you something. 70 million people don't agree with you. They don't agree. And if you want proof of what I'm saying, of why 70 million people have a question about this election, here's the proof. Here's the proof of why 70 million people question what happened. Because the Democrats, prior to the election, filed over 300 lawsuits in key swing states. Prior to the actual election, they filed 300 lawsuits. And some of the lawsuits were lawsuits that said, we want counting to continue after the election. We want ballots to be accepted that don't have an actual postmark on them. These are some of the lawsuits the Democrats filed. We want there to be more early voting, but really what they wanted, the Democrats, the moral of the story is their litigation was to not just count way before the election, like 5 weeks, and have people vote 5 weeks before the election. They want counting to continue after the election. They don't want a date certain of an election until the result is achieved. That is the best way to summarize their lawsuits. And these were lawsuits before the election. So if you're a Donald Trump supporter, right, and let's just say you agree with 75% of what he does, you don't like the way he handles himself, but you support his policies, you do want to see, and you at least want to understand that when the other side, when the other party has all of these lawsuits, you have to ask yourself the question and scratch your head and say, why would anyone file lawsuits to allow counting to continue after an election where you don't have to match signatures on ballots, ballots don't have to be postmarked? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. That's cheating. I'm sorry, that is cheating. And the Democrat Party, through their lawyers, were encouraging, through litigation, Massive cheating. And so now the question is, post-election, did that actually occur? And if so, should it have been allowed?